Okay, yeah, so we don't need to say anything for a little while, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
The owner talks about.
You're listening to Uptown Radio. It's Thursday, December 11th. I'm Zach Jaworski.
And I'm Destiny Jones. The city wants to add more food carts to the streets. Immigrant street vendors say they need more legal ways to sell food.
And not everyone's on board with the city's new ferry routes.
I think one of the really big challenges for the ferry system is the connections to other transportation modes once you get off the boat.
Also ahead, a New York City school is about to offer a new bilingual education program in Arabic. Surprisingly, there are few programs like it in the city.
The Arabic language is ready to go once we get enough students to be in the seats.
And there are serious problems with the city's outdoor dining program. Restaurants want to do it year-round.
The new iteration of this program is failing our city. There's just no reason that we shouldn't allow outdoor dining to continue to flourish.
But up first, we have the news.
News with Sue Montgomery. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says there remain two outstanding issues in talks with the United States over the shape of a peace proposal. These are the status of those parts of Donbass still held by Ukraine and the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Joel Gunter reports.
President Zelensky's remarks today were the first window into the fine detail of a peace plan that had been bouncing between Russia, the US and Ukraine for several weeks. Mr. Zelensky said that the US was pushing for Ukraine to withdraw from the Donbass, a region Russia had largely occupied, but where Ukraine has fought doggedly to retain control of territory. The Ukrainian president said the US proposal was for a demilitarized zone in the contested land, but he said that the US had not proposed who would control the area. He also said a referendum of the Ukrainian people would be needed before any territory could be ceded. The draft plan envisions Russian troops withdrawing from certain areas they have occupied, Mr. Zelensky said.
The NATO Secretary-General has warned that the alliance must be prepared for war on a scale similar to those endured by previous generations. Mark Rutte said many people were too complacent about the threat posed by Russia. Frank Gardner reports.
NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte said the alliance of 32 Western nations was Russia's next target, and that NATO countries were already in harm's way. Time, he added, was not on NATO's side, and the alliance needed to be ready. Russia, he said, had brought war back to Europe with its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and we in the West must be prepared for the scale of war our grandparents and great-grandparents endured.
A football fans group has called on FIFA to halt World Cup ticket sales over what it called the extortionate prices being charged. Football Supporters Europe said FIFA's approach was a monumental betrayal of the game's fans. Here's Manny Jasmi from BBC Sport.
Unlike previous World Cups, when ticket prices in every round were the same for every game, these tickets vary according to the perceived attractiveness of the fixtures. For example, since the draw, games involving Lionel Messi's Argentina and Ronaldo's Portugal have tripled or quadrupled in price. For the World Cup final, tickets start at, get ready, $4,185 in the cheap seats, which is 7 times the cost of an equivalent ticket in 2022.
The deployment of American troops to cities around the United States is estimated to have cost more than $340 million, according to a U.S. lawmaker. National Guard troops have been deployed by President Trump to Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Chicago, and several other cities. World News from the BBC.
And I'm Oliver Hall with the local news in New York City. New Yorkers are returning to the office faster than in other parts of the country. That's according to a new report by the New York Economic Development Corporation. The workers may not be happy to be back in the office full-time, but the state report said that it will be good for business in office districts like Manhattan. The report also cited higher than normal job growth in the outer boroughs. New York City government is calling for more rules on so-called med spas. Those are the places that offer cosmetic procedures such as Botox and butt lifts. A new City Council investigation that was released today said that the spas do not all have medical staff standing by or to carry out the procedure. Those that they looked at don't have proper licences. The NYPD is looking into the discovery of a human skull along the Coney Island boardwalk. A passerby called the case in earlier this week, and the medical examiner has not yet determined the cause of death. Police are also searching for 2 suspects involved in the stabbing of a 15-year-old on a bus in the Bronx. The altercation began in an argument yesterday, turned into a beating, and ended with one suspect stabbing the victim multiple times. Police busted a retail theft ring in Queens. Authorities announced this morning that the group had stolen more than $2.2 million worth of goods from Home Depot stores across 9 states. It's the largest bust of its kind in Queens history. In sports, Mets fans are saying goodbye to a beloved icon. First baseman Pete Alonso is leaving for the Baltimore Orioles. They offered him a 5-year, $155 million contract. He's the latest key player to leave the Mets this offseason. Some fans aren't happy.
The owner talks about spending all of this money. He's like, we're just going to keep spending money. And then when it comes to spend money to keep the one guy you need, he's like, we're not going to do it.
Luigi Mangione is back on trial at the Manhattan Supreme Court today. More on that later from Destiny Jones. Oliver Hall, Uptown Radio.
Today, Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani appeared at a daycare center to talk about his free childcare plan in the city. The event had everything: cute kids, a gaggle of reporters, and lots of slogans. The only thing it didn't have was an actual plan to make free childcare happen. Sarah Pepitone reports.
At the Little Scholars Child Care Center in Chelsea, the mayor-elect sat on a chair and read a book out loud to toddlers. It was a Christmas story that included a bit about how hard-working reindeer deserve carrots. Mamdani did not go into details about who pays for the carrots, and when questioned about his campaign promises, he was similarly vague. On the campaign trail, Mamdani said that he would deliver universal child care. That means free daycare for every family in New York with kids ages 6 weeks up to pre-K. Today, he told reporters that he was meeting with business leaders to get them on board.
And I made the case that universal childcare does not just make moral sense, it also makes economic sense.
And Mamdani said some business leaders are with him.
And what I appreciated about this meeting and these business leaders is that they are committed to taking on this issue and committed to taking it on because of the imperative of a moral level, of an economic level, of a political level.
Mamdani says he has not yet come up with a way to pay for the child care plan. Estimates suggest the price tag could be as high as $6 billion. The governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, says she supports child care, but will not allow a tax hike to pay for the plan. And Mamdani today said he would not support trimming other city programs to pay for the child care.
I don't think we need to entertain the possibility of cuts in order to fund an agenda like this. What I've spoken about is an openness to different revenue streams.
One thing Mamdani has going for him is the support of liberal New York activists who have been calling for free childcare for a long time. Today, advocacy groups held a rally outside the governor's office in Manhattan to urge her to work with the new mayor and to sign the legislation. Before the event, I spoke with Gabrielle Murillo, who works for Grand Street Settlement.
We're just holding Kathy Hochul, Governor Hochul, accountable, letting her know that, we see that you support it, and we're going to hold you accountable, make sure that you go good with your promise.
So holding accountable, you say going good with your promise. What does that mean?
That means passing legislation and making sure you sign it and deliver for New Yorkers.
No one knows what would be in that state bill for free childcare. Everyone is waiting on the new mayor to come up with the details. Mamdani said today, hey, I still have time.
Well, I'm not yet the mayor, but I am hard at work at preparing this.
To be precise, he has 21 days. He gets sworn in on January 1. Sarah Pepitone, Columbia Radio News.
Luigi Mangione is in court today again in Manhattan. Prosecutors have revealed new financial records that link him to foreign accounts. The judge has hinted at ruling on admissibility following arguments that Mangione's McDonald's arrest was illegal.
I spoke with Taya Johnson, a professor at Rutgers Law School. Her work focuses on how the plea bargaining process operates and how it shapes outcomes in the criminal legal system. Taya, thanks for joining me here. Mangione's lawyers argued that his arrest was illegal, with police questioning him for 20 minutes without a warrant. What are the nuances here, and could anything said before his rights were read and items from his bag, could those be ruled inadmissible?
Sure. So it's a really interesting case. And one thing we should remember here is that Mangione is facing charges in both state and federal court. But right now he's in New York State court. And so both the federal constitution and New York State constitution are going to operate here. And the question is, was his search illegal? Was his arrest illegal? Should the police at some point have stopped talking to Mangione when he said he wanted to remain silent, as is his right? So there's really interesting questions on all of those issues. And one of the questions, of course, sort of the primary question is, did they have probable cause even to arrest him? And that's what a judge is going to decide right now. The other interesting question here, of course, is once they did approach him, they then opened his backpack and searched his backpack. And there's at least some question that has come up during the hearing about why they did that. Did they do it because they believed that there was a public safety concern? At least one officer said that there was a concern that he might have had a bomb in his bag. And there is a public safety exception to the warrant requirement, but generally we are supposed to ask police officers before they search a closed container that they go and they get a warrant and they affirm that they have probable cause to search that container. And so this is all evidence that the prosecutor wants to introduce at trial, obviously. And if indeed the evidence is suppressed, then they can introduce it at trial. And that can change the nature of the trial dramatically if they're not able to get this information in because it was taken in violation.
And we've seen prosecutors release the video from before his arrest. What is the significance of that?
I think prosecutors probably are trying to, by releasing the video publicly, trying to give the public a sense of what the situation was at the scene.
This hearing has moved slowly, which you mentioned briefly, and there are also state and federal trials to follow. When do you think we'll know the future of his case?
The hearing doesn't matter that much. You know, is it going to go to trial or not? Whether a certain piece of evidence is suppressed may not have a huge bearing on the case. But this is one where, potentially the determinations of this hearing will have some significant impact on whether or not they can go to trial at the state level. And then, of course, there's the federal case. And in fact, you can pursue a federal and state case at the same time. There's no bar on that under double jeopardy. But generally, you sort of let the parties pursue the case in one forum and then the other forum takes over if that's how they want to do it. So, we could potentially be seeing litigation in this case for months or even years, potentially. There's no there's no clear timeline for something like this.
Unlike Luigi, I'm not a huge fan of McDonald's myself, but you know what I do love? Street food. And speaking of that, what's your favorite, Destiny?
You know, Zach, I honestly am obsessed with tacos. Steak tacos, to be very specific. They're absolutely delicious.
They sure are. Tacos, hot dogs, shawarma, you can find just about all of it on New York City streets. And with over 20,000 street food vendors, there just aren't enough licenses to go around. And City Hall is making moves to change that. Paul Maniaci has that story.
There's tons of people who want to operate street carts in the city. But right now, there's 10,000 people on the wait list to get a license. And that list has been closed since 2017. For years, advocates for the street food vendors have been asking for more licenses to be made available. The movement is finally getting momentum.
Standing together in a historic moment where brick and mortar interests, council members from all across the city of New York and street vendors are calling for reform together.
That's New York City Council member Purina Ana Sanchez at a rally last week. She's one of 32 council members co-sponsoring a new bill that would add 2,000 more licenses for street vendors annually over the next 5 years. Sanchez and others are hoping to get the bill passed before the end of this legislative session, which ends later this month. If they don't get it voted on by next Thursday, they'll have to start the process all over again next year.
We have bodega representatives, we have restaurants who are all coming together.
A survey conducted by the Street Vendor Project, an advocacy group, shows that only 25% of the 20,000 street food vendors have legal permits, which might explain why some of them were hesitant to give their opinions on the new legislation.
You can't talk? You're shy.
Tengo que tener la licencia.
Uh-huh.
También las cosas de aseos, cómo trabajar.
That's Miriam from Guatemala. Miriam is one of the lucky ones who was able to get a license. She told me the cost of her license was around $600. She's been selling empanadas in New York for 8 months at different spots throughout the city. I asked Miriam if she has ever run into any problems with the police.
No, cuando todo el carro, cuando todo está en orden, no hay ninguna problema.
She says she's been very lucky because she has her paperwork in order and on display in her cart. Miriam didn't share how she was able to obtain her license given the large wait list. But she supports the legislation to increase licenses and is hopeful that others will have a chance to get their own as well. Selling food on the street is an important job opportunity for immigrants, who make up 96% of street vendors. Language barriers and immigration struggles can make the jobs a crucial lifeline for new arrivals to the city. And getting a street vendor license doesn't require proof of citizenship.
Street food vending has been regulated in this city as long as there have been street food vendors. And sometimes, or a lot of the time, that regulation or attempt at regulation is also wrapped up in anti-immigrant feelings, language, whatever.
That's Catherine Piccoli, the curatorial director of the Museum of Food and Drink in Brooklyn. She says increasing street vendor licenses is particularly important now, since ICE raids throughout the city are at an all-time high. Having more licenses available will give street vendors a more secure working environment during a time when tension is high. A final version of the bill was submitted to the City Council yesterday, and a vote on the legislation will happen next Thursday. If it doesn't pass, advocates will need to go back to the drawing board. Paul Maniaci, Columbia Radio News.
New York City's ferryboat system is adding new routes to connect more parts of the 5-borough archipelago. Some commuters are happy with the improvements, but some are still not satisfied. Destiny Jones reports from the Wall Street Ferry Terminal.
The ferry redesign is about the city's future. It's overseen by the New York City Economic Development Corporation, but Hornblowers runs daily operations. The new plan includes 6 updated routes. Dan Zarilli is the Chief Climate and Sustainability Officer at Columbia Climate School. He has lived in Staten Island for 18 years.
Anything that helps people not need to rely on their cars to get around New York City is fantastic.
One major change, a route that runs from Staten Island directly to Brooklyn. The change is part of the Ferry Optimization Plan, which launched Monday. Over 15,000 riders pushed for better connections and more reliable service. For Zarilli, the redesign is only a start.
I, personally would love to see a connection to the West 125th Street pier here, next to our Manhattanville campus at Columbia. I would also really love to see a direct connection on the route from Staten Island to Governor's Island. I think that would be a really exciting option for Staten Islanders as well. I think one of the really big challenges for the ferry system is the connections to other transportation modes once you get off the boat. Anything that gets more New Yorkers out of their cars and moving around more efficiently on mass transit is good for air quality. It's good for congestion. It's just generally good for livability here in New York City.
At the Wall Street Terminal, commuters are waiting for the next ferry. One of them is Danielle. She lives in Staten Island.
I'm happy about it because it's going to take you to Brooklyn, so that way I could take you from St. George to Brooklyn.
Other changes include splitting the East River route to combine both Rockaway and Soundview for direct access to Midtown. But for riders like Danielle, well, it's still not perfect.
I just wish they had it from Staten Island straight to the Bronx.
Even though she likes the new system, she still wants more from the city. took them so long to get this new plan. How do you think that is going to change over time?
I was shocked when they did this, this redesign they did now. I mean, I'm happy about it. So maybe it will change. I pray it does.
What do you think are the positives of the new system?
I love it. It beats the trains. It's safer.
New York City's ferry redesign is better than before, but not all riders are satisfied.
At some point, it would be great if there was really like regional fare integration so that the same ticket that you buy for the subway can help you get on whether the path or the regional trains or the ferry system, and have like one network and one way to pay that works for all modes of transportation. That would be a great innovation for New York.
For now, the system gets people where they need to go, but many believe there are still improvements to be made. Destiny Jones, Columbia Radio News.
Earlier this week, New York City Comptroller Brad Lander announced that he was running for Congress in New York's 10th Congressional District, which represents parts of Brooklyn and Manhattan. He drew a key endorsement from New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, who he closely aligned himself with when they were both running for mayor over the summer. I spoke with Robert Shapiro. He's a political science and international affairs professor at Columbia. I asked him what Lander's thought process was in challenging Dan Goldman, a fairly popular one-term incumbent.
Well, I think part of it is the revolt within the Democratic Party in terms of the more progressive wing of the party, basically upsetting the current mainstream, or at least the perceived to be mainstream members of the party. And Goldman fits that bill, and he's an incumbent.
What could be some of the ramifications for the Democratic Party nationally if Goldman is upset?
Well, if Goldman's upset, the Democratic Party is going to be losing a very effective member of Congress who's been effective at challenging ICE agents in New York. And more importantly, he's a skilled prosecutor who was involved directly in the impeachment proceedings taken against Donald Trump. If the Democrats take a majority of the House, they will have the option of investigating like crazy the antics of the Trump administration. And there are really very few people to do that any better than Goldman. But by contrast, his upstart opponent is a lightweight in that context.
Are you anticipating Democrats would take back a majority next year?
Much if this were a normal election, given that it's close in the House, you'd expect the Democrats to be able to pick up at least a few seats, if not many more, especially given the perceptions of the poor performance of the incumbent administration on a lot of fronts, and in particular on the economy front, inflation and so forth.
So now in New York City, you're also seeing Jack Schlossberg running for Jerry Nadler's seat, which he's retiring at the end of the year. He's a grandson, of course, of the late President John F. Kennedy. He's relying a bit more on political clout than a record as city comptroller. Who do you imagine is going to be more successful running for Congress? Do you think it's going to be a Lander, or do you think it's going to be a Schlossberg in this case?
I think it may vary by the composition of the congressional districts here. I think a lot of the new Democrats from the progressive wing of the party, outsiders, are going to get a lot of attention given Mamdani's big success here in the city, and his success has perhaps created an opening for other candidates. Not so much like Mamdani. I think he may be one of a kind here, but people who aspire to be coming in from the outside.
Of course, staying on the topic of Mamdani, he's one of the most popular politicians in the United States right now. How much weight do you imagine his endorsement's going to carry for candidates like Lander?
I don't know if I'd say Mamdani is one of the most popular candidates in the United States right now. Oh, certainly the most well-known, and certainly within the Democratic Party, especially progressive circles, probably at this juncture, the most visible candidate.
Lastly, what's the local outlook for next year's midterms, and when could we really expect these races to start heating up campaign-wise?
I think so. It's Mamdani's endorsement, but there's a question of what issues Mamdani cites. If he's going to emphasize Gaza and Israel as the issue, that's something that could cut both ways, and the effectiveness of that may vary by district.
Do you think it's going to be a strong showing for New York Democrats?
I would say after the first of the year, in terms of candidates deciding to run in the primaries, and I think and there the name of the game is kind of raising money and gaining visibility, and so given the way national campaigns have gone these days, the earlier the better for the candidates interested in running. There are two issues here. One is the primaries, and the question is will New York Democrats who are not viewed as progressive enough to be primaried. In the general election, for the most part, this is a Democratic state, Democratic city. These Democratic candidates will win, whether they're the incumbent or not.
Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Happy to do it.
Destiny, did you know that in New York City's public schools, nearly half of students' native language isn't English?
I actually didn't know that, but considering New York is such a melting pot, that completely makes sense.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Arabic is actually the third most common language, but of nearly 400 schools in the city with bilingual programs, only 2 actually offer programs in Arabic. Junie Chan reports that a third school is finally joining that list.
The Eagle Academy for Young Men of Harlem is situated at the heart of Harlem, a diverse neighborhood with a large Arabic-speaking population. And now, the school is launching a new Arabic language program. Around the corner from Eagle Academy, you can hear Arabic in restaurants, mosques, and bodegas, just like the one that I walk into in central Harlem. Abdul's family owns this busy bodega. They're from the Middle East, and they all speak Arabic. Abdul also speaks fluent English, so he works at the cashier. Do you meet a lot of customers who speak Arabic?
Yes, they come every day. It's not rare.
He says that among them, many kids also speak Arabic. But no public schools in Harlem offer Arabic language programs. Only 2 public schools have it in the whole city, and they're in Brooklyn. Why are they so scarce? The city comptroller's office audited the Department of Education in September. Their audit raised concerns about the effectiveness of DOE's efforts to onboard enough qualified Arabic language teachers. The audit says that DOE officials claimed that there is a shortage of qualified teachers, and they're continuing their efforts to recruit a diverse and robust pool of candidates. However, they did not provide documentation of these efforts. I reached out to DOE for comment, but as of this broadcast, they haven't replied. At Eagle Academy, they're holding a program initiation meeting to get more students interested and to sign up. The program will be offered to 6th to 11th grades. It'll count as a world language credit towards the graduation requirement. Many students are excited about this. At the meeting, one of them shares his thoughts in Arabic. In the audience, Jermaine Smiley is the middle school's director of Scholar Life.
I hear murmuring going around that they're excited.
He knows 2 Arabic middle schoolers and a couple more in high school. He hopes that the program will help increase those numbers. To do that, the school is working with Future Giants, a nonprofit organization that creates educational initiatives. R.D. Snyder is the founder who came up with the program's idea. He says enrollment is the first thing.
The Arabic language is ready to go once we get enough students to be in the seats. It's that simple.
What about teachers?
Teachers come with student numbers.
Snyder says the DOE will assign teachers based on how many students are registered for the program. Now, he asks the local community to spread the word.
He asks that all of us make a contact with somebody to help this school grow this program so we can expand.
And that's the ultimate goal, to expand the program to other public schools. And there are indeed students who are interested. Back in the bodega, Abdul's nephew, Ali Alomari, also speaks Arabic. He learned it from his parents, and he uses it at home every day. When I tell him about the new language program at Eagle Academy, he says,
If I was living in Harlem, I would go to the school to learn more Arabic because barely anybody teaching me Arabic these days.
Eagle Academy just started pre-enrollment for the Arabic language program this week, and they plan to launch the program next September. Jun Yicheng, Columbia Radio News.
You know, just thinking back to Paul's story very briefly, I'd hate to be waiting in line at a food truck today. It's really chilly out there. I mean, how are you handling the cold, Destiny?
Well, Zach, I'll be honest. I'm not used to it at all, being from Virginia, but, I'm managing.
Yeah, it's been pretty tough. Winter has come down hard on New York City. And with it comes the bitter end of the first season of New York City's official outdoor dining program. Restaurant owners have been struggling to participate in outdoor dining due to limitations imposed by the city. Aliyah Gatto reports from the cold streets of Manhattan.
On a brisk sunny morning, Ian Cervantes is sitting outside a cafe, steam rising from his breakfast sandwich.
I'm a person who likes options, so I think sometimes if, let's say, inside maybe it's too cold or too hot, and you have the option to go outside and just kind of sit, like right now we're taking the sun.
Cervantes Sidewalk Breakfast is made possible by NYC's outdoor dining program. But while eateries can keep a couple tables and chairs set up through the winter, they have to board up and break down those larger roadway dining sheds. I spoke with Peter Casimas, owner of Green Kitchen on the Upper East Side, who says he has to hire a contractor to break down and set up his shed and pay to store it all until March.
So there's a cost, obviously, for building it, which now, depending on what type of a structure you have, that can be done twice a year now, which is fairly expensive.
Along with the seasonal limitation, a long application process, and high fees, many restaurant owners have been dissuaded from participating in outdoor dining altogether. As City Council member Lincoln Restler puts it,
at the height of the pandemic, there were 8,000 restaurants participating in outdoor dining. Today, 1,400. That's an 80% decline.
But there's a plan to fix that decline. Restler is sponsoring a few city council bills. One would allow restaurants to keep their dining sheds throughout the winter. Another would streamline the application process, which one city official said averages 6 months. That way, the fees to license outdoor space would be less of a headache and more worthwhile for restaurants.
The new iteration of this program is failing our city. There's just no reason that we shouldn't allow outdoor dining to continue to flourish.
Outdoor dining is more than just a fun option for enhancing your dining experience. Cecil Brooks thinks it's a vital part of getting diners to invest in communities. Brooks works to help small businesses with the organization Open Plans. I met up with him in the South Bronx. He points to one neighborhood spot, I-9 Bistro. The storefront is decked out in flowers and vines, a pop of color on an otherwise dull street.
We don't have a lot of parks and green spaces, so outdoor dining is one example. It's one way to provide access to fresh air and economic activity.
Brooks says that I-9 is a good example of the problems that restaurant owners are facing with the current regulations. He says the owner had to shutter both his sidewalk cafe and roadway shed because
the outdoor dining program in New York has been so challenging to work with. Not to mention, he can't do it year-round. So he has to figure out a place to store everything, which is a lot of money for him.
But the bills to better outdoor dining face an uphill climb in the City Council. A representative from a community board in Flushing told City Council members that sidewalk cafes pose a threat to pedestrians in one of the city's most congested neighborhoods. And pedestrians aren't the only concern. John Cohen drives in the city, and he doesn't like diners taking up perfectly good parking spots.
That outdoor dining have me driving all around, burning gas, looking parking.
With everyone fighting for space on New York City's streets, it's unlikely that the City Council will move to improve outdoor dining anytime soon. For now, if you want to eat out, you'll have to dine inside. This is Aaliyah Gatto, Columbia Radio News.
You're listening to Uptown Radio.
But there's more to come, so make sure you stay with us. You're listening to Uptown Radio. I'm Destiny Jones.
And I'm Zach Jaworski.
Coming up, that fancy European wine you love, well, that might be replaced by domestic swill. Blame tariffs.
And New York City hair salons are short-staffed. Too many people are learning how to cut hair on the internet.
It doesn't mean that they're bad hairdressers, they just haven't had the experience of seeing all the different textures and all the different people.
The movie theater industry is struggling, but one theater is trying a new approach to getting butts in seats.
This is like real food.
I mean, when the movie starts, we will give you popcorn, but during dinner, yeah, you're not getting popcorn.
And a church that won't let AI come for its resident bell ringer this holiday season.
And then it's showtime.
These stories and more coming up. But first, the headlines.
I'm Oliver Hall in New York City with the news.
President Trump's tariff policy has helped cut the trade deficit. At the same time, import and export growth has slowed. The Commerce Department released data this morning that shows the overall goods and services deficit was down 10%. A federal judge in Maryland ordered the release from ICE of Kilmar Armando Abrega Garcia, who was wrongfully sent to an El Salvador prison earlier this year. The move to remove him from ICE custody is a rebuke to the Trump administration. It comes after months of protests from politicians and advocacy groups. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem appeared before a House panel today. She defended her immigration policy, and Democrat Benny Thompson called on her to resign.
Do a real service to the country and just resign. That is, if President Trump doesn't fire you first.
Noem was heckled outside the chamber after leaving the hearing early. President Trump loyalist Mike Lindell has announced he'll run for governor in Minnesota next year, challenging incumbent Tim Walz. He told AP News that he will leave no town unturned in the state. A chance to reform the healthcare system failed in Congress today. A Republican plan to avert rising healthcare premiums went down to defeat, and the Democrat extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies also failed. Both bills got 51 votes. They needed 60 to pass. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed this afternoon that the United States plans to take the oil from the tanker it seized off the Venezuelan coast on Wednesday night. It said that US officials were currently interviewing the crew on board. The US has continued to increase pressure on Venezuelan President Maduro to resign. It has now sanctioned 3 of his nephews. A hearing on whether an Abercrombie & Fitch CEO is mentally fit to stand trial for sex trafficking has been set. If found fit, Michael Jeffries could be in court in October. US District Court Judge Nusrat Chowdhury said in a phone conference that she was aiming for a trial this fall. It's 36 degrees and cloudy today, with lows of 28 overnight. Rain is expected in the city on Saturday, turning into possible snow showers on Sunday, with highs on Sunday just above freezing. This is Oliver Hall, Uptown Radio.
Now comes a story about healthcare. New York City Health and Hospitals just launched a $32.2 million initiative to expand critical time intervention teams. These teams will support psychiatric patients for up to 9 months after discharge. But how do we make sure people don't slip through the cracks after they leave the hospital? I'm here with Megan Nuzza, LMSW, from the Boston University School of Social Work. She has done research focusing on aging, social policy, and program development. I asked her what this initiative means for New Yorkers.
Yeah, so this initiative is huge. It's very large offering from the New York State Office of Mental Health, OMH. We know that hospital to community are vulnerable transition, and having this team, this critical time intervention teams across the city and across the state really shows that they're taking this transition really seriously and really trying to connect folks to services on their path to recovery.
And for the people that aren't too familiar with critical time intervention, do you mind explaining that a little bit more in depth?
Sure. Critical time intervention is a form of case management intervention that really started in the 80s with Ezra Susser, Sally Conover, Dan Herman, and other folks in the field that really saw that there was this vulnerable time, this time of transition where folks who were unhoused were transitioning from shelter to community. And during that time, were not connecting to services in the way that would make their transition successful. And so they really created this intervention. It's evidence-based, and it's based off of 3 distinct phases where a CTI worker will work with an individual through those phases, and it's usually a 9-month intervention. And so it's a very time-limited, targeted case management intervention.
From your perspective, what makes CTI an effective approach during high-risk transactions?
Yeah, CTI is an effective approach because it's really person-centered, it's team-based, it's a form of case management that's different than traditional case management in that it's really connecting people to either natural or formal resources and really trying to strengthen those connections from day one.
Now, looking more into the future, what is next for critical time intervention, and how do you see these programs and initiatives being implemented?
I think what's happening in New York with health and hospitals, but also OMH across the state, I think will really show how with a sustained support of CTI implementation, it can really be successful in larger areas. So with support from New York State Office of Mental Health and their large initiative, I think it shows that CTI will continue to grow and be used in different places.
That's Megan Nizza, LMSW, from the Boston University School of Social Work. You know, Zach, when was the last time you had a haircut?
I'll have to think on that, but I think it's August.
August, okay. Well, if you're thinking about getting a fresh cut for the holiday party this year, you might have some trouble. Hair salons are short on something that keeps them running: assistants. Sarah Pepitone reports on the quest to hire the next generation of stylists.
If you've ever had a haircut by someone other than your bored sister, they were probably once an assistant. It's how hairdressers get trained. But you don't have to start at the bottom to work in a salon, and many people are skipping this step. That has hair salons across the city desperate to find new assistants. I'm at Cut Loose in Greenpoint, a buzzy salon with a dance party vibe. Siobhan Benson is the owner. She was an assistant 20 years ago.
I did a lot of my boss's blow dries, actually held the sections for him as he cut the hair.
That's called the human hair clip. Being an assistant can be tough. Terrence Lucas works for Siobhan. They list off things assistants are asked to do.
Ripping foils, mixing color,
Help with the shampoos,
cleaning the sink when there's color everywhere.
hair gets messy.
It's all of it.
The point of all of it is to make sure hairdressers know how to do all of it, which used to mean less glamorous tasks too. Hairdressing teacher Sarah Rapalt also started as an assistant.
I was scrubbing toilets, I was doing the laundry, I was not taking lunch breaks.
These days, people who want to cut hair for a living don't want to be hazed on toilet patrol. And many think they can learn the skills they need by watching YouTube or Instagram.
Hi, welcome to the channel. I'm Summer. Today's video is going to be your perfect beginner's guide to
Sarah says that can teach some techniques.
1, 2, 3, this is how you cut the bang.
But videos can't teach the nuance of the job, like head shape and how hair moves. Differences that drive a good cut.
It doesn't mean that they're bad hairdressers, they just haven't had the experience of seeing all the different textures and all the different people and all the different skill set.
Several stylists told me salons need to change the way they treat assistants to make it a more attractive job. The first step is admitting they used to have a problem. Siobhan says,
People were really mean to assistants, especially when I first started. The elders were different.
Mean ranges from never letting assistants sit down to sexual harassment.
The hair industry gets like a really bad rep of like being toxic.
Hoping to make that a thing of the past, salon owners say they're improving working conditions by hiring cleaning staff, sending out laundry, and some are meeting this generation where they're at, on social, with lighthearted takes on assistant life, and posts that show off how cool their workplace is. A salon in New Jersey called Art is Salon has a video with happy assistants goofing around while they sweep and clean. In Brooklyn, Siobhan tells prospective staff they can create the life they want.
Well, I do offer complete flexibility of their schedule. They can make their own prices, make their own hours.
Sometimes the recruiting is less intentional. Before Terrence came here to work for Siobhan, she Googled the salon and saw something shiny that drew her in.
It would be cool to work at a place with a disco ball, and it just like looks like a cool place to hang out.
That's right. There's one spinning and sparkling from the ceiling above. Making work less worky appeals to every generation and may be the perfect way for the industry to survive. Sarah Pepitone, Columbia Radio News.
Looking forward to having a fancy drink for the holidays? You may have to pay. Prices of European wines have been increasing, and some wine drinkers have noticed the shift. Oliver Hall went to a wine shop on the Upper East Side to find out why.
For many, the holidays are all about gathering with friends and family, and often that involves drinking wine. Sometimes, a lot of it. But when I went into a wine store this week, I noticed a trend that a lot of people had been talking about in the industry. There were fewer European wines, and those that remained were more expensive.
So I'm here outside Whole Foods on Columbus Avenue, Uptown. Crying baby here, there's Christmas trees being unloaded from a large lorry into the main store, and we're going to enter into this wine store now. I'm going to do my standard purchase straight for the Rioja, and we're going to have a look at what kind of sparkling wine they've got on offer as well. We're now into my favourite section, the Spanish wine. And it's worth pointing out that there's still loads on offer. So it's not like you're going without Spanish wine this festive season. There's plenty here in a large store like this. But what is also true is that it's a substantially smaller selection than there was before, and that's left is all just that little bit more expensive.
As soon as Donald Trump was elected, promising massive tariff reform, large wine importers bought up vast quantities of bottles. That meant that they haven't actually been paying the price for those tariff increases or passing them down the supply chain, firstly to shops and then in turn to buyers like us. Now though, those supplies are running out and wine store owners are starting to feel the pinch. That's affecting people like Charlie, who told me of his struggles with a large crate of champagne under his arm outside that very same Whole Foods.
I think, honestly, there's definitely been some kind of shift that I've noticed. I'd be expected to be paying, maybe $10 a bottle less, maybe $15. And
$15?
Oh, but once you're buying 6 bottles, that kind of thing adds up. I mean, I can't comment on the specific institution, but I regularly kind of go to this event where they usually do serve champagne, and I noticed there was a slight flavour difference this time, and I asked just candidly to the waiter, what are you serving? They showed me the bottle, and they changed it to a Prosecco. Maybe it's telling,
Smaller wine stores are also adjusting. I visited 107 Wines, a few streets uptown. Behind the counter, Benny told me that buyers have one thing in mind during the holiday season. Wines.
No, they buy more champagne, definitely, yeah. And on the holiday, yes, definitely.
Normally, European wines dominate the sales here. Recently, it's been a different story.
But the most sold here is the Cabernet from California, Napa Valley.
Across the board, wine wholesalers and liquor store owners were clear. Times are changing. Importers cannot absorb price increases any longer. Drinkers and event planners are already noticing a difference. So, like Charlie, you might just have to settle for Prosecco this Christmas. Oliver Hall, Columbia Radio News.
It's no secret that the movie theater industry has been struggling. The box office has been hurting since COVID, but October was the worst month yet in 27 years. Some theaters are trying completely new approaches to attract moviegoers. Zach Jaworski went out to see how one theater is looking to the future.
Going to the movies. The air smells like butter from the constantly popping popcorn. And the walls are covered in bright posters, highlighting the newest releases. Virtually everyone has a memory at a place like this. Just ask Tucker Papa, who I met after he saw Hamnet at the 34th Street AMC Theater.
I would say it would be like family, like my mom showing me movies and connecting to it.
What keeps you coming in person?
No distractions. I feel like I'm far more immersed inside the movie theater than I could ever be at home.
Watching at home on platforms like Netflix is exactly how more Americans than ever are choosing to see movies. In nearby Chelsea, the new Metro private cinema is trying to buck that trend. The first thing you notice walking in is the record player. It's also dim inside. The front door opens up to a wood-paneled cocktail bar, and there's shelves full of vinyls lining the main room. You'd be forgiven for thinking it's some kind of hip new speakeasy. It's the kind of counter experience founder Tim League is going for.
I think it's really important for any cinema, whether it's a big box cinema or something like us, is to justify our existence, to make the experience great.
The actual screening rooms here have the reclining chairs that have become standard at theaters. But other than that, things are a little different.
We're something that hasn't been done in the cinema space, so I hope that what we'll end up doing is bringing people that don't want to go to a traditional movie theater, and this is more their speed.
That's because there's also a dining table fit with plates, wine glasses, and formal silverware, all laid out for a 13-course meal. Not like popcorn and soda, this is like real food.
I mean, when the movie starts, we will give you popcorn, but during dinner, you're not getting popcorn.
That's Sarah Johnson. She's a server here, that's right, at a movie theater. She says besides just having dinner for the sake of it, the Metro Private Cinema is trying to add something to the movie-going experience.
For instance, we've had some screenings of The Big Lebowski where they're drinking sarsaparilla, so then we'll drop a sarsaparilla so you can have sort of like a 40X experience.
But going here isn't cheap. Tickets are $50, basically double the going rate in New York City. To add dinner is another $100. Up the one train, I met Robert King at his Columbia University office.
Oh, hi.
He's a film historian with an expertise in American cinema.
Let me just make a cup of tea.
And he has his thoughts on Metro's new model.
I don't care about 13-course fine dining. The majority of people probably don't either. It's probably nice for this theatre that's experimenting with this if they get a return clientele. But I don't think that's going to save the industry.
Instead, he thinks leaning into the shared experience, which studios are doing with targeted social media campaigns, could help the industry.
Let's turn the collective space into something that is 100 individuals collectively bonding in relation to a wild experience.
Just last week, Netflix bought HBO, uniting two of the biggest catalogs in streaming under the same flag. Meaning, with its back already against the wall, the theater industry is going to have to adapt even quicker, whether new theaters are the right answer or not. For Columbia Radio News, I'm Zach Jaworski in New York. And finally, AI and automation is coming for a lot of jobs, including the person who rings the bells at your local church. The ringing you hear on Sunday probably comes from a digital recording.
But as Veronica Cohn reports, one church is still holding on to that human touch.
It's the belliest time of the year in New York City. Salvation Army bells, jingle bells, and church bells. In Morningside Heights, bells toll regularly from the tower at Riverside Church. Sometimes they're automated, and sometimes a person is playing the carillon. That's what they call the bells. And that makes Carla Staffaroni the carolliner.
I've been playing for over 15 years. I began originally at Wellesley College. I heard the carillon when I was visiting campus, and I just thought it was so cool to hear the music played out loud from the bells.
I shadowed Carla on a typical Sunday. She doesn't pull a rope to make the bells ring. She plays them on a keyboard-like device called a clavier. First, she does a warm-up on a clavier attached to a xylophone. Then it's up, up, up into the bell tower. 145 steps. To the clavier with keys and pedals of the big bells. Carla shows me how low they go. And then it's showtime. Riverside Church has had a live carilliner for decades, playing a set of 74 bells weighing 500,000 pounds. But Riverside and carolliners like Carla are becoming the exception. Churches across the country have replaced bell ringers and, in some cases, bells altogether, opting instead to play recordings. One of those churches is St. Anthony's in Brooklyn, who hasn't had live bells in over a decade. The digital system they use cost $10,000 to install, but it would have been $25,000 to repair the physical bells. So, do people at St. Anthony's miss the bells? I tried to talk to parishioners as they rushed out of Sunday service, and they said they hear the bells, but don't really mind their electronic. And staff at St. Anthony's say churchgoers never ask about the bells. Their theory? Technology and computers replacing jobs. And when it comes to electric versus live bells, it is hard to hear the difference. Here's a sample of electronic bells. Now here's our carilliner Carla playing the bells.
When a person plays the bells, there's more of a dynamic range. It allows for more expression, and really the performance of it is part of the personality of the person playing.
Even if the listeners don't get that at first. Lorelei lives across the street from Riverside Church and remembers when she first heard the bells.
It was like a whole show. I can't even explain it. And who I didn't realize it was a human. I had no idea.
Maybe that's why Riverside gives tours and shows people what they may be missing. No one claps for a machine. Veronica Cohn, Columbia Radio News.
Well, that's it for this edition of Uptown Radio. We sure hope you enjoyed the show.
Today, our executive producer was Veronica Cohn, and our senior editor was Aaliyah Gatto.
Our senior producer is Junie Chan, our newscaster is Oliver Hall, and our day reporter is Sarah Pepitone.
Back in the studio, our director was Paul Maniaci with board operator Callie Bomelli. Our instructors Lydia McMillan Laird and Robert Smith advised our staff. I'm Destiny Jones.
And I'm Zach Jaworski. You can always find us on uptownradio.org. From all of us here at Uptown Radio, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Yay!
We survived. Yeah, we survived.
Critique for an hour.
Yeah. Well, you know, for everything that was a total shit show when we walked into this room, we did all right.
I feel like it was good.
I just feel so bad. I don't feel like I pronounced anything.
You don't? I think you did. Did you? What did? Is it Christine's stuff?
Yeah.
Let's see. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to come back? All right, now we go back. Good job, man. Thanks.